Welcome to the .NET Word Library tutorial. In this video, I will show you how to create and fill a form in a Word document. The Word Library allows you to create and edit content controls in the Word Open XML format documents. The types of content controls are text, picture, checkbox, date picker, etc. You can lock or unlock the content controls to prevent deletion or editing by the users. In this video, I will show you how to create a form with text, checkbox, drop-down list, and date picker content controls. I will also demonstrate how to fill out the form and protect the same from editing content or deletion by the users. First, I open an existing ASP.NET Core application, in which I have already installed the Syncfusion.io Net Core NuGet package. Refer to the link in the card above to create an ASP.NET Core application with the Syncfusion.io NuGet package. I want to create a form with a button click, so I go to the index.cs HTML file and remove the existing code and add a new button named Create Form with a click event. I specify the action name as Create Form and the controller as Home. To define the action method, I navigate to the Home controller and add the Syncfusion.io and .iodls namespaces. Also, I add the Syncfusion drawing namespace to use colors in the Word document. Then, I define the action method, Create Form. Before proceeding with the code, let me show you how the form will look like. This is a project status report form. And these are the content controls. I will create a table and add the text and content controls like this. First, I create and initialize a new Word document instance. I add a section to the document and specify its page margins. Then, I get the text body instance of the section. Using the Add Table API, I add a table to the text body. Next, specify the number of rows and columns for the table. I want only the bottom border for the table, so I set the border type of Borders API to none and the line width and color for the bottom border. Next, I add a paragraph to the table's first cell using the Add Paragraph method. I add text to the paragraph using the Append Text API. As I want to format this text, I add a new method called Apply Character Format with 4 parameters, namely text range instance, font size, bold, and text color. Since I am going to maintain the same font throughout the document, I specify the font name as static. Then I set the font size, bold, and text color properties using the parameter values. Next, call the Apply Character Format method here by specifying the font size as 18, bold as true, and color as blue. Similarly, I add a paragraph to the second cell of the table. Next, I will add a drop-down to select the project status. I define a new submethod named addDropdown with paragraph instance, title, and drop-down items as parameters. Paragraph class has an API called Append Inline Content Control. I add a drop-down using that method. Here, I have specified the type as drop-down list. Then, set the title. This title property helps identify the content controls in the document. To set the default value in the drop-down, I create a text range instance. And set the default text to it. And apply the character format for the text range. Then, I add the text range to the paragraph items collection. I will iterate through the string array and add items to the drop-down. I create a content control list item and initialize it. Then, specify its display text and value. And add the list item to the items collection. Next, I make a call to the add drop-down method from here. I specify the title as status and the list items. Next, I am going to add a date to the form. To do that, I first add a paragraph to the text body and specify its before and after spacing values. I append the text to the paragraph as date and apply character format. For adding a date control, I create a new submethod named addDate with paragraph and title as parameters. I append the date using the append inline content control API. I set the title and tag for the date. And I also specify the date display format. To add the default display text, create a new text range and set the default text. I apply the character format for the text range. Then I add the text range to the paragraph items collection of the date control and call the addDate method from here by specifying the title as date. Before proceeding with the other items, I will show you the output of this code. I am going to save the Word document. I create a memory stream and save the Word document to the memory stream. I call the close method of the Word document class to release all the memory it consumes. I return the file with the specified content type and name. I save and run the application. Click this Create Form button to generate the Word document. Look, the Word document has the added content controls. This is the drop-down, and the date is here. The next step is to add the project details. First, I add a table to the text body and specify the row and cell count. I set the border style to none. Then, add a paragraph to the first cell of the first row. And define its after spacing value. I append the text to the paragraph as project name. And apply character format to the text range. In the next cell of the row, I will add a text content control to fill the project name. So I add a paragraph to the second cell. I create a new submethod named addText. Like the other content controls, I append text content control to the paragraph, specify its title and tag, and add the default text. I call the add text method by specifying its title as project name. Similarly, I add the team size data to the second row of the table. Next, I am going to add the language details. I add a new paragraph to the third row and append text. In the next cell, I will add the checkboxes for selecting the project language. I create a new submethod named addCheckbox. I append a checkbox to the paragraph and specify its title and tag. To have the current state of the checkbox as unchecked, I set the is checked property to false. Then I append the text using the title value. And apply character formatting. I call that method by specifying the title as C#. Similarly, I add another checkbox titled VB. Next, I must add the start date of the project. I do it like the date I had added before, but I specify the title as start date. Then, I'm going to add the project manager and team name. Since both are text, I need to add text content controls. So I reused a code from the previous text content control added to the document and rename the text and title. Next, to specify the platform for the project, which will be a dropdown, I copy and reuse the previous code and only rename the row index and text. Then I make a call to the add dropdown method. I have already added a start date using the date content control. Likewise, I add the end date. I have finished adding the project details in the Word document. I save and run the application. Look, the Word document has all the content controls I added: drop-downs, dates, checkboxes, and text content controls. So far, I have only added inline content controls. I want to show you an example of a block content control. I will create a block and add the contact information. I want the contact information at the end of the page, so I add a paragraph to the footer of the section. Then, I add a block content control to the footer using the Add Block Content Control API. I have specified the type as rich text. Then, I specify the title and tag as contact information. I add an empty paragraph and then a table. I specify the number of rows and cells as 2 and the border style as none. Next, I add a paragraph to the first cell and specify its spacing value. I append the text as contact information and apply the character format for the text. I add 3 more paragraphs to the table's second row, which includes the contact information. I save and run the application. You can see the contact information here. Next, I will show you how to fill this form. I add a new button in the index.cs HTML file. I named it Fill Form. Then, in the Home controller, I define the action method. I load the generated Word document in a file stream instance. I create and initialize the Word document instance using the file stream object, and then dispose the file stream instance. I'm going to find the content controls in the Word document and update them one by one. Word document class has an API called findItemByProperty, using which I can get the item instance. First, I am going to update the project status. I call that method by passing the entity type as inline content control, property name as title, and the property value as status. I want to update the project status as in progress, so I get the text range instance from the paragraph items collection. And set the text as in progress. To format the newly added text, I apply some character formatting. I define a new submethod named applyCharacterFormat with a parameter text range. I set values for font name, size, and text color properties. I call the applyCharacterFormat method from here. Next, I am going to update the date. Using the findItemByProperty method, I get the instance of the date content control, and I get the text range instance to update the date in it. I set today's date to the text range and apply character format. In the same way, I update the start and end dates of the project. I reuse the previous code and update the title and date. I have specified the start date as 6 days before the current date and end date as 1 day before the current date. Next, I will update the project name in the form. I get the text content control instance using the title as project name. I get the text range instance and update the project name in it. I repeat the same code for the other content controls in the document, including team name, team size, and project manager. Next, I will update the language option. I get the content control instance by specifying the title as C#. Then, I set the isChecked property to true. Finally, I am going to update the platform of the project. By specifying the title as platform, I get the content control instance and set its text to ASP.NET. I save document to the memory stream and return it as a file content. Let me show you the output of this code. Click the Fill Form button to generate the Word document. Looking here, the content controls are updated with the data I filled in the code. I can also make changes to the existing content. Next, I am going to explain how to restrict the editing of the contents or deleting the content controls by users. The Content Control Properties API has options to do that. In this form, I want to lock the contents of the project name. So I set the lock contents property to true. Next, I set the lock content control property to true for the C# language checkbox so that it will not be deleted from the document by users. Finally, for the platform dropdown, I lock both the content control and its content. I save and run the application. Now, when I attempt to edit the project name, I am unable to do so. You can see the message in the status bar indicating that it is locked. Similarly, when I try to delete the C# language checkbox, a similar message is displayed in the status bar. The same case applies to the platform dropdown. In this video, I showed you how to create a form using the content controls in a Word document and how to fill the content. I also showed how to prevent editing or deleting content controls by the users. If you want to see the working code of this example, you can download it from the GitHub link in the description below. I've also provided a link where you can see if you qualify for a community license to use our document processing libraries for free. If you found this video useful, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.